mention that after the break. That was a really good point. This is the bit of the show where you are brought into the conversation. But before I hit up the phone lines and chat with Robin Rugby, I just want to do what I said I'd do, because Tim and I were discussing during the break of when you join the dots with a lot of this stuff, not entirely, but there is a sort of pernicious common denominator, which is foreign involvement. And I don't mean when I say foreign involvement of, you know, the nationality of the perpetrator of a crime. But what you have is hostile regimes wargaming the mass migration into this country, predominantly of young men from other cultures. Then you also have those same countries manipulating various hardline organisations such as Antifa and so on and so forth. You then have those same countries pumping drugs that lead to psychosis into this country, which are then being taken by predominantly the young men. You've then got those same countries pumping out information on social media platforms to make these people go down wormholes while they're sitting in their bedrooms smoking on their spice. And then when it all kicks off as a result of that toxic cocktail, the same countries are then getting their bot farms to push out narratives and divide us even further. It's amazing how the sort of long bony fingers of evil regimes are somehow involved in a lot of this stuff.
Well, that's a brilliant description, I think, of the huge challenge that we face. We are not in a world where we are surrounded by people who love us. We are surrounded by people who hate us, who hate our freedoms, and they are using our freedoms against us. And one of the things I think you particularly mentioned that I would emphasise is the way that drugs are coming into our country. We talked about it earlier. And one of the things that really does annoy me is that when you have these people, 30, 40, 50-something university sort of graduates who say, well, I smoked weed when I was at university and it didn't do me any harm. You know, what's on the street now, the toxicity of it, the power of it that our kids are now consuming is of a completely different order from the weed of yesteryear. I mean, and it is ruining people's minds, and it's turning the sort of weakest and some of the most vulnerable kids into the real menaces of the kind that we've been talking about this morning.
It's ridiculous. I mean, but then, you know, we have these conversations about, oh, well, should you know, teenagers be allowed smartphones? A smartphone's a piece of metal. It's the content on that phone that matters. And these days, how are the people traffickers getting people onto dinghies? Using TikTok. That's how they're advertising their services. Oh, yeah, Chinese owned, isn't it? How are these young people getting hold of their spice and their skunk and their fentanyl? Oh, yeah, on TikTok, on Snapchat, on WhatsApp.
If our politicians were really, really focused on the stuff that mattered, what was on our smartphones would be top of their priority. I think it was the former Tory MP, until recently Tory MP, Miriam Cates, who said, imagine if our children left our homes and were walking down a street with neon signs and placards all the way down the road to the school with vile pornography, drugs, all the rest of it.
Murder, suicide games.
We would be demanding that all this stuff was ripped down. But it's happening to them. It's just happening to them on those little metal objects that you just talked about.
I've been saying forever we should just blimmin' pull the plug on it before we can figure out how to control it. And I know that's pretty extreme. But then people say to me, oh, well, you can't ban this, you can't ban that. Guess what? In France, they've managed to. In France, you can't watch pornography without, you know, paying a load of money and putting your credit card details in. You go to the UAE and guess what? There's a whole world of stuff you can't look at online. Not even to mention China, who basically online is whatever the Chinese Communist Party want you to see.
And I don't think either of us are wanting sort of Chinese control of our lives, but it is something to be noted that China that owns TikTok is flooding us with stuff.
Of our lives.
We've got Chinese control. Yeah, exactly. They are flooding us with stuff they wouldn't allow their own children to be exposed to.
Exactly. Blimey, we've touched on something big there. But I've got so many calls waiting, so we better crack on. Rob in Rugby. Hi, Rob.
Hi, Alex. Love your passion. Love your show. Just very briefly, I just want to broaden the subject slightly when we talk about the toxicity, the pernicious destroying of our history. I'm ex-Royal Air Force, and I worked with 14 Squadron in the Royal Air Force, who have been around since 1915, before the RAF was formed.
Wow.
They were called the Crusaders. That is there. That's everywhere they are. The Crusaders, a well-known squadron. They have just been forced to remove the name the Crusaders, and it's been mentioned because it might be offensive to Muslims.
Oh, for God's sakes! When does this end?
Royal Air Force.
Oh no, I'm not having that.
Force.
My grandfather served in the Royal Air Force, right? He used to drive the vehicles during World War II, actually operated in places like Palestine. That man had a huge amount of sympathy for the Palestinians. But, you know, as someone who's, my grandma sewed the wings on Gloucester Gladiators and that was there when the very first jet engine was put in that aeroplane. Nobody messes with the Royal Air Force. Not under my watch. I mean, it's stuff like this that causes such injury, and it's blimmin' vain and venal middle-class people who have privilege and have platforms and pump out this stuff because they want to be seen as do-gooders. They want to try shower themselves in some kind of glory as a luxury ideology. You know, it's no longer I get to go on a holiday to Spain and get a tan because everyone can get on the Ryanair now. So they've had to find something else to make themselves be able to look down their noses at the common man. And what they've discovered seems to do the trick is bashing our country, bashing our institutions, and frankly, bashing our servicemen. That's disgusting.
And this is yet again the sense that we aren't equal in this country, that you can criticise Christianity till the cows come home. You know, we all focused on that Olympic ceremony in Paris, which was despicable to some Christians, the way the Last Supper was traduced, really, in the way that it was. But anything that offends certain sort of minorities, well, that's outrageous, and it has to be removed. You know, and the only growth industry in our country sometimes seems to be the offence industry. People seem to take offence at everything, but Christians, patriots, people who are sort of generally the view that Western civilization is the best civilization we've ever had, and I absolutely believe that.
I do.
Saying that is probably sort of
We've created this beautiful, progressive, tolerant civilization that we've worked hard for, and we don't get to enjoy the spoils of it anymore. Instead, we have to sit back and watch it being destroyed, and it's ridiculous. And do you know what? PR just needs to be banned. If there were no such thing as PR people, there'd be no blimmin' need for them. Get rid of the lot of them. Rob, thank you ever so much. Let's listen to some voice notes now. Paul in the beautiful Sevenoaks.
I just wonder, with all these, the English Defence League and all these far-right fascists diving around all over the country, are they the same ones that have gone to Dublin and caused trouble over there? Are they international? They're not just the English Defence League, they go to Ireland as well. I mean, I've never heard so much codswallop. It's just normal people getting cheesed off of it. It's the same in Ireland, it's the same in France, it's the same in Britain. It's not organisations, far-right, far-left, it's just normal people cheesed off.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? The so-called culture wars. Oh, the right wing are just trying to create a culture war. No, the culture wars is when people with a grain of common sense say, I know, let's stop chopping genitals off children. Thank goodness for people who voice
You're the one
concerns.
starting the culture war by saying that.
Oh, yeah, of course I am. No, the culture war has been started, and I'm just fighting my corner on behalf of this wonderful country.
You're not allowed to fight back. You've got to sit there quietly and do as you're told by the new establishment.
Yeah, good luck. Do you know that the name Alex means defender of men? From the Greek.
Really?
It does.
Yeah.
And I will continue to do that. Right, Brian in the Southend, let's have a listen to your voice note.
Just listening to your show, and you get the people on and they keep going on about these riots in Southport and Hartlepool, and then they mention London. Well, London wasn't a riot. Just look, where was the burning of police vans? Where was the lobbing of bricks at police officers? There wasn't a riot. The only people causing trouble at the London March were the police themselves.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, the optics of this. I mean, I don't know if that's down to staffing. I don't know, you know, because the police and the Met Police, clearly there used to be big protests happening on the streets here and conflagrations kicking off about whatever it is that moment. Is that down to the fact that perhaps the Met Police are more coordinated, organised and heavy-handed? Is it down to two-tier policing? I mean, it is interesting that we've had these mass demonstrations in London that haven't turned into an absolute hullabaloo like they have done in other parts of the country.
It may well be that we have a new government, the Home Office may be slightly twisting the screw on the Metropolitan Police and saying they want a tougher response to this. I don't know. I think there's also a concern at the top of the police. It may be part of the two-tier policing you criticised, that the kind of people organising the protests in central London, Tommy Robinson is obviously a name that's associated with them regularly, are also the people associated with organising these sort of flying squads of basically football hooligans going from one town to another in parts of the north. And so maybe they think cutting it off at the root is how you cut it off in London. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I don't know either. But I do think that, you know, I still remember the sort of Lewisham Croydon riots. Do you remember that, when there were kids kicking in the shop windows of JD Sports and setting fire to Carpet Warehouse and stuff?
The Blackberry riots, weren't they, when the Blackberry Messenger was being used as a secret way of coordinating process without the police being able to know what was going on.
So many things to unpack, and don't worry, we're going to continue to do it because I'm with you through till 1 o'clock. But we're going to take a breather from this topic of conversation and speak about something, well, I wouldn't say exactly less contentious, because after the break we're going to be discussing Hugh Edwards. Don't go anywhere.
Oh my goodness.